Boy. Go. Cat. Dog. Run. Jump. House. Tree. Book. Flower. From struggle to success, the emotional journey of a new home, heartwarming story of hope and perseverance. Chapter 1. The Morning of Adventure. The sun peeked through the curtains of a cozy little house, painting the wooden floors in warm hues of gold. Inside, Buddy, a lively and curious golden retriever, wagged his tail with uncontainable energy. Today felt different, though Buddy didn't know why. The air carried the scent of fresh flowers from the garden, mingled with the faint aroma of breakfast being prepared in the kitchen. His human family was busy with their usual morning routines, and in the midst of all the hustle, the backyard gate remained slightly ajar, a rare invitation to the world beyond. Buddy's ears perked up as a bird chirped from a tree just outside the yard. He tilted his head, intrigued, as if the bird was calling him. His paws shuffled on the ground, and his eyes gleamed with curiosity. What could be out there? Beyond the fence, cars hummed softly, and distant laughter echoed from children playing on the street. The world seemed alive, beckoning him to come and explore. Glancing around to ensure no one was watching, Buddy crept closer to the gate. His heart raced as he nudged it further open with his nose, the metal hinges creaking softly. It was his first glimpse of freedom, an open street, a carpet of green grass on the sidewalk, and a world full of new smells and sounds. Taking one last look at the house behind him, he hesitated. But the bird chirped again, and that was all the encouragement he needed. With a burst of excitement, Buddy dashed through the gate. His paws hit the pavement, and his tail wagged furiously as he inhaled the new scents around him. Everything was so different. The texture of the road under his paws, the crisp morning air, and the chorus of distant noises. Buddy felt alive like never before. He sprinted down the street, passing a cat lounging lazily under a tree, who opened one eye and watched him go. Buddy barked playfully, but the cat simply flicked its tail and ignored him. Further down the block, a small dog on a leash yapped at Buddy, clearly envious of his newfound freedom. Buddy kept running, his energy boundless, his mind racing with the possibilities of where this adventure might take him. For a moment, Buddy thought he smelled something familiar, a faint trace of his family's scent mixed with the smell of flowers. He paused, unsure whether to turn back or keep going. But then, a car passed by, and its rumbling engine startled him. He bolted in the opposite direction, unknowingly leaving his home further behind. As the morning wore on, Buddy found himself in a part of the neighborhood he didn't recognize. The houses were different, the streets unfamiliar. His excitement began to waver, replaced by the first hint of uncertainty. Where was he? How far had he run? But as he looked around, his tail wagged faintly. He wasn't scared, at least not yet. After all, this was just the beginning of his great adventure. Chapter 2. A New Smell, a New Place. The morning sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the unfamiliar streets. Buddy's nose twitched as a tantalizing aroma filled the air, a warm, comforting scent that made his mouth water. It was the unmistakable smell of freshly baked bread. His stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten since breakfast. Guided by his powerful sense of smell, Buddy trotted eagerly toward the source, his tail wagging with anticipation. As Buddy rounded a corner, the scent grew stronger, pulling him toward a bustling bakery on the edge of a small plaza. The place was alive with activity, people chatting, the clatter of trays, and the hum of a nearby coffee machine. The open bakery door sent waves of warmth and delicious smells spilling into the street. Buddy stopped just outside, his golden fur shimmering in the sunlight, and peeked in cautiously. His eyes widened at the sight of rows of pastries, breads, and cakes, all neatly arranged behind the glass. Suddenly, a kind-faced baker stepped outside to greet a customer. She noticed Buddy sitting there, his head slightly tilted, his eyes fixed on the bread. She chuckled softly and called out, "Hey, little guy, are you hungry?" Buddy's ears perked up at her voice, but as she took a step closer, he backed away, unsure of her intentions. The baker smiled and placed a small piece of bread on the ground before retreating inside. Buddy sniffed the air cautiously, his instincts torn between curiosity and caution. Finally, hunger won. He darted forward, grabbed the piece of bread, and retreated to a safer spot under a nearby tree. The taste was incredible, warm, soft, and satisfying. For a moment, Buddy forgot his worries as he enjoyed his unexpected treat. As he finished, Buddy noticed the world around him. The plaza was filled with life, children running and laughing, a girl sitting on a bench reading a book, and a dog tied to a post wagging its tail as its owner bought coffee. Buddy felt a pang of loneliness amidst the lively scene. These people reminded him of his family, of the warmth and security he had left behind. But there was no time to dwell. A sudden noise startled Buddy. A delivery truck pulling up to the bakery. The loud rumble of the engine sent him scurrying across the street. He darted through a narrow alley, his heart racing, and emerged on the other side into yet another unfamiliar area. Here, the streets were quieter, lined with tall trees that swayed gently in the breeze. Buddy paused to catch his breath, his ears alert for any sound that might signal danger or, perhaps, a clue to lead him home. Instead, he caught another new smell, a faint but enticing scent of meat coming from a nearby cart. His stomach growled again. Buddy padded toward the cart, but this time he was more careful. He stayed in the shadows, observing the vendor and the customers. His instincts told him to trust no one, yet his hunger pushed him forward. As the vendor turned away for a moment, Buddy seized the opportunity and snatched a small sausage that had rolled off the counter. He dashed away quickly, the sausage clutched in his mouth. Finding a quiet spot under another tree, Buddy ate in silence, his eyes scanning his surroundings. Each new street, each new smell, felt like another step further from home. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed his mind. Would he ever find his way back? But the pull of the unknown was still strong, and Buddy decided to keep moving. After all, this new world, though strange and overwhelming, was full of possibilities, and he was determined to explore them all. Chapter 3: The First Friend. The sun cast long shadows across the quiet park as the boy and his dog continued their search. The crunch of gravel under their feet was the only sound until a faint, almost imperceptible whimper broke through the stillness. The boy froze. He turned to his dog, who was now sniffing the air intently, ears perked up, tail wagging cautiously. "Do you hear that?" the boy whispered, his voice trembling with a mixture of hope and fear. Without waiting for a response, the dog bolted towards the sound, pulling the boy along. They pushed through a thicket of bushes and stumbled upon a sight that would change their journey forever. A small, scruffy cat sat perched on a low branch of a tree, its fur matted and one paw awkwardly tucked beneath its body. Its wide, green eyes glistened with a mixture of curiosity and fear. The boy's heart sank at the sight of the injured animal. "Hey there, little one," he said softly, crouching down to appear less threatening. His dog stood at his side, wagging his tail gently, as if reassuring the cat that they meant no harm. For a moment, there was silence, a tense standoff between trust and fear. Then the cat let out a tiny, hesitant meow. The boy smiled and extended his hand. "It's okay. We're here to help." Slowly, the cat climbed down from the branch, landing awkwardly but determinedly. It approached cautiously, sniffing at the boy's hand before rubbing its head against his fingers. The dog barked once, not loudly, but enough to express approval. The boy chuckled. "Looks like you've got a new friend," he said, scratching the cat behind its ears. It purred softly, leaning into his touch. He noticed the cat's paw was swollen, and it flinched when he gently examined it. "We need to get you some help," he said firmly, looking around for any sign of where the cat might have come from. But there was nothing, just an endless stretch of park and trees. The boy removed his scarf and fashioned a makeshift sling, gently placing the cat inside. The dog stayed close, as if protecting their new companion. As they began walking, the boy felt a strange sense of purpose. Finding the lost dog had been their mission, but this encounter felt equally important. "Maybe you're a sign," he mused aloud. "Maybe helping you will lead us closer to the one we're searching for." The trio moved through the park, each step solidifying their bond. Strangers they passed smiled at the sight of the boy, his loyal dog, and the tiny cat in its sling. They were an unlikely team, united by circumstance but bound by something deeper. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the world in hues of orange and gold, the boy felt a glimmer of hope. He didn't know how, but he was certain their paths had crossed for a reason, and together they would find the way forward. Chapter 4: The Fierce Beagle. The golden glow of the late afternoon filtered through the tall trees as the boy, his loyal dog, and their newfound feline companion walked cautiously down a winding path. Their bond had grown in just a short time, but the journey ahead was still full of uncertainty. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl shattered the calm, freezing the trio in their tracks. The boy's eyes darted ahead, and there, standing defiantly in the middle of the trail, was a muscular beagle. Its stance was rigid, ears pinned back, and teeth bared. This was no ordinary encounter. This beagle meant business. The boy instinctively tightened his grip on the makeshift sling carrying the injured cat, while his dog stepped forward, his body tense but non-aggressive. "Easy, buddy," the boy whispered to his dog. He then looked at the beagle, trying to decipher the source of its hostility. Was it protecting its territory? Was it lost like them? Whatever the case, one thing was clear. They couldn't move forward without addressing this confrontation. The beagle barked sharply, the sound echoing through the trees. The boy flinched but stood his ground. His dog let out a low growl, a warning that they wouldn't back down easily. "We don't want trouble," the boy said softly, his voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. "We're just passing through." The beagle's intense gaze shifted between the boy, his dog, and the cat. Then it lunged forward a few steps, barking furiously. The boy's dog responded in kind, barking back, his tail stiff and his body poised to defend. The boy held his breath, fearing the clash would escalate into a fight. But then he noticed something strange. The beagle wasn't attacking. It was hesitating, its movements erratic and uncertain, as if torn between aggression and fear. "Wait," the boy murmured, lowering himself to the ground slowly. He placed the sling with the cat gently by his side and reached into his pocket, pulling out a piece of bread he had saved from earlier. "You're hungry, aren't you?" he said, holding the bread out toward the beagle. The beagle's growling subsided slightly as it sniffed the air, its eyes locked on the offering. The boy tossed the bread a few feet away, ensuring it was close enough for the beagle to take without feeling threatened. The dog cautiously approached, its growls turning to whimpers as it gobbled up the food. The boy's dog relaxed slightly, sensing the tension ease. The boy spoke softly again. "You're not so scary after all, are you?" He noticed a worn collar around the beagle's neck, its tag scratched and illegible. This dog, too, seemed to be on its own, perhaps abandoned or separated from its owner. As the beagle finished eating, it looked up at the boy, its eyes softer now, almost apologetic. The boy extended his hand cautiously, letting the beagle sniff him. Moments later, the beagle gave a tentative wag of its tail. The boy smiled. "See? We're not enemies." His dog stepped forward, sniffing the beagle in a show of truce. The two dogs circled each other briefly before the beagle sat down, letting out a small, almost defeated sigh. The boy chuckled, relieved. "Looks like we've got another companion," he said, glancing at his dog and the cat. As the group began moving again, the beagle trotted alongside them, no longer a threat but an ally. The boy couldn't help but feel a surge of optimism. Each encounter, no matter how challenging, was shaping their journey in unexpected ways. With their newest member now part of the pack, they continued down the path, their determination stronger than ever. Chapter 5: The Park of Surprises. The sun climbed higher into the morning sky, casting long, dappled shadows across the sprawling park the group stumbled upon. The boy, his loyal dog, the timid cat, and their newly adopted beagle stopped at the park's edge, staring at the inviting yet mysterious scene before them. It was unlike any place they had been so far. Large open fields stretched out, dotted with towering oak trees and colorful flower beds. Birds sang cheerfully, their melodies carried by a soft breeze. But something about the quiet stillness felt off. "This looks like a good place to rest," the boy murmured, scanning the area. He crouched to adjust the makeshift sling carrying the injured cat, ensuring it was secure and comfortable. The beagle sniffed the air, its nose twitching, while the boy's dog wagged its tail cautiously. They ventured in slowly, their footsteps muffled by the thick grass beneath them. As they walked deeper into the park, the boy noticed something peculiar. Things seemed slightly out of place. A swing in the playground creaked rhythmically, moving though there was no wind. A bench nearby had a single shoe placed neatly on it. A trail of breadcrumbs led toward a grove of trees, but abruptly stopped. "Stay close, everyone," the boy said, his voice steady but alert. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the bushes ahead. The beagle barked sharply, the sound bouncing off the silent expanse. The boy's heart raced as he took a step back. "What now?" he whispered. Then from the bushes, a small squirrel darted out, pausing to glance at the group before scurrying up a tree. The boy let out a relieved laugh, shaking his head. "It's just a squirrel, guys. False alarm." But the park wasn't done surprising them. Further along the trail, they stumbled upon an old wooden gazebo, its paint peeling and vines wrapping around its posts like nature's embrace. Inside, an elderly man sat with a stack of books beside him. His weathered face broke into a warm smile when he saw the boy and his companions. Well, travelers," the man said in a gravelly voice. "You found the Park of Surprises." "Surprises?" the boy asked, intrigued but cautious. The man nodded, gesturing to the bench opposite him. "Sit a while, and I'll tell you." The boy hesitated, glancing at his dogs and the cat, who seemed calm for the moment. He decided to sit, the beagle lying protectively by his feet while his dog sniffed around. "This park," the old man began, "is no ordinary place. It's a crossroads, you see, a place where the unexpected finds you." He reached for a book from the stack and opened it, revealing pages filled with strange symbols and sketches of animals, trees, and maps. "Many have come through here, and each one leaves with a story to tell." The boy leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "What kind of stories?" "Depends," the man said with a twinkle in his eye. "Some find treasures they weren't looking for. Others uncover truths about themselves. And some face challenges they didn't think they could overcome." He closed the book and looked directly at the boy. "The park tests those who pass through. Are you ready for what it has in store?" The boy glanced at his companions. The injured cat nestled in the sling purred softly. The beagle yawned as if unimpressed, and his loyal dog stood watch, alert and ready. Taking a deep breath, the boy nodded. "We'll face whatever comes our way." The old man smiled again, rising slowly. "Good answer. Now go. Follow the trail to the heart of the park. That's where the real surprise awaits." The boy stood, thanking the man, who simply tipped his hat before turning and disappearing down a hidden path. With their spirits renewed and a sense of adventure bubbling within them, the boy and his companions stepped onto the trail, their footsteps leading them toward the unknown mysteries of the Park of Surprises. Chapter 6: The Fierce Dog. The sky turned a muted gray as the boy and his companions followed the winding path through the park. The cheerful songs of birds were replaced by an eerie stillness. The trees grew denser, their branches arching overhead like skeletal fingers. The boy clutched the sling carrying the injured cat a little tighter, while his two dogs padded silently by his side. The beagle, usually brimming with energy, seemed unusually cautious, its ears swiveling at every faint sound. As they rounded a corner, the boy froze. Ahead, a hulking dog stood in the middle of the path. Its fur was dark and matted, and its eyes glinted with an unsettling mix of intelligence and aggression. A low growl rumbled in its throat, vibrating through the air. The boy's loyal dog stepped forward instinctively, placing itself between the boy and the threat. The beagle, less confident, crouched low, its tail tucked but ready to defend if needed. The boy's heart pounded in his chest as he took a careful step back, trying not to provoke the beast. "Easy, we don't want any trouble," he murmured, though his voice quivered. The fierce dog took a menacing step forward, baring sharp teeth that gleamed even in the dim light. He scanned the surroundings, searching for an escape route or something to defend himself with. His gaze landed on a sturdy tree branch lying a few feet away. Slowly, he edged toward it, trying to avoid sudden movements. The fierce dog's growl deepened, its body coiling like a spring ready to pounce. The boy's loyal dog barked sharply, a sound filled with courage and defiance. It stood firm, its tail stiff and its teeth bared in return. The fierce dog hesitated for a moment, surprised by the challenge. Taking advantage of the pause, the boy lunged for the branch, gripping it tightly as he stood to face the threat. "Stay back," he shouted, waving the branch. His voice carried a mix of fear and determination. The fierce dog snarled but didn't retreat, its predatory gaze fixed on the boy. Suddenly, the injured cat let out a faint, pitiful meow from the sling, as if sensing the tension. The sound seemed to ignite something in the fierce dog, which crouched lower, preparing to attack. Before the boy could react, his loyal dog sprang forward, barking furiously. The beagle, finding courage in its companion's bravery, joined in, circling the fierce dog and snapping at its heels. The fierce dog whirled around, trying to fend off the coordinated assault. The boy's mind raced. He knew his dogs couldn't hold off the beast forever. Spotting a large tree nearby, he made a quick decision. "Up here! Now!" he called to his companions. He scrambled up the trunk, his hands gripping rough bark as he climbed to a low branch. The injured cat was securely strapped to him, and he reached down to help the beagle, hoisting it up as it whimpered. His loyal dog was the last to climb, leaping up with the boy's assistance just as the fierce dog lunged at them. Its massive paws clawed at the tree, and its snarls filled the air, but it couldn't reach them. Safe for the moment, the boy took a deep breath, his heart hammering in his chest. From their perch, he observed the fierce dog pacing below, its frustration evident. "We can't stay here forever," the boy whispered to his companions. The cat purred faintly, as if trying to reassure him. His loyal dog licked his hand, its steady gaze conveying trust. The fierce dog suddenly stopped, its ears perking up. In the distance, a sharp whistle pierced the silence. The dog froze, then bolted toward the sound, disappearing into the shadows. The boy and his companions stared after it, stunned. Who had called it? And why? As they climbed down cautiously, questions swirled in the boy's mind. This encounter was no accident, and whoever controlled the fierce dog might still be close. Gathering his courage, he patted his loyal dog and the beagle. "We'll stick together, no matter what," he said, his voice resolute. With the park's mysteries deepening, the boy led his companions forward, their bond stronger than ever as they ventured into the unknown.